everyone. I'm Jeanne Gallagher with Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. And I'm here with Denise Stegall, our longevity specialist. Hey, Denise.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I
And
am doing good, thank you.
I'm glad that you're feeling a little bit better.
Yes.
Nothing better than a summer cold at the end of summer.
Yeah. Yeah, especially through Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, not the best time, not the best way to spend a holiday weekend.
No, but it is what it is. And
Mhm.
luckily, I know enough about myself and my body I took care of myself. I slept a lot. I took lots of holistic fun stuff. And when necessarily, I did take something from the doctor because I did not want to get more sick than I was.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Well,
we can do so much, we can do so much naturally and holistically, but sometimes we really do need to, the Western medicine does come in handy.
every once in a while, it's a good thing to have. And so now that we are at the end of summer and we're progressing into fall, I can't believe that that's the topic here. But you're going to be talking to us about fun fall festivities.
I am, because I love the summer, but I love the fall too, because it's just such a pretty time, and we're not sweating to death anymore.
Ugh,
Outside my window,
speak
it's
for
just so
yourself. It's going
beautiful.
to be 105 today. I
Ooh,
know, not
okay,
happy.
it was like 55 degrees here this morning.
I would love that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. But here in the Midwest, in the upper Midwest, it's fall is it comes quickly and it ends quickly. So this is the time for us to really start thinking about fall, even if it's not quite fall by you yet.
Mhm.
And this is something that you cannot do virtually. You actually have to go out and enjoy these fun fall festivities. And the first one I want to talk about is something that I love to do. So the apples are ready for picking.
Mm.
And this is such a fun time to, take an afternoon, whether it's afternoon or early evening during the week or on a weekend, is to go to one of the orchards. And I have one right here in my backyard. I
Mhm.
have 4 apple trees that are staring at me going, okay, pick me. And it's just such a fun fall event. You don't do it very often. I do it once a year. And so it's something that, you can get together with your friends, with your family, and make it a true event. Apple picking is kind of funny because you can do it a couple of different ways. Sometimes we just kind of shake the tree, and sometimes they're up so high, that's the way to do it. But you can actually, get a little step stool and pick the apples. And it's just fun. How many times I've gotten up on the step stool and, fallen over. Not too, I haven't fallen too badly, but, just kind of, it's just something different. The one nice thing though, is what I've learned, while being on a step stool ladder, is core balance is key. So
That
we're
is
talking
true.
fall festivities, right? But we're also talking core health here. So apple picking is a lot of fun. Very often at the orchards, they'll have a market, they'll have fresh home baked goods, all sorts
Mhm.
of kind of fun things that you can do. And more often than not, with apple picking comes the hay rides.
Mhm.
Uh, we used to do that all the time when we were kids, and when my niece and nephew were little, some of the pictures are just a hoot. The little kid with the biggest pumpkin, those kinds of things. So I really think it's really fun to go to the orchards and to the local farms. One, you're doing something different. You're getting outside, but you're also supporting your local farmers, and that
Mhm.
really promotes community. And I think that's really an important part of what we do here at Living Healthy List, and what I do with my clients, and truly with life. We want to enjoy, we want to be healthy. Why not get outside, bring this community together? So, when was the last time you went out apple picking?
Well, last year. It's not
Okay.
so depending on where I'm at. So right now I'm in California. The apple tree that's in our yard it's looking a little, it's not a big apple year, and it's nowhere near ready because it's 110 to 5 degrees here. But in Maine, where I was last week, the early season just started. I didn't get to go yet, but I go back in October, and I'm more, I love the Maine apples. The different regions have different types of apples.
They do.
And I love the Maine apples, Cortland's and McIntosh, and there's a couple of others there that really call to me. So I'm looking forward to that when I head back the beginning of October. And I love the fact that you're talking about supporting community. And I think that that's really important. So supporting your local farms, whether that's in a farmer's market. And if apple picking isn't your gig, find the farmer's market where the apple orchards are and buy their apples. But supporting the community and supporting your local farmers is so, so important.
I agree. So along with this, and I know we've talked about this before, is that seasonal produce kind of cooking. The tomatoes are in abundance at this stage. And I mean, to the point where I think I have 8 pots of tomatoes upstairs on my deck, and they're all just overloaded. So I said to my husband, I'm like, I could do this or I could do that. And we decided we were going to make salsa. We've never made salsa, but that's what we're going to do this coming weekend, is we're going to make salsa. And we both love it. So, why go to the store and buy salsa when I can make it fresh? It's going to taste better. It's not going to have any crappy ingredients in it or preservatives. So I'm really excited about that. And it's very simple. So definitely challenge people to, try something different, when you go to the farmer's market or to the orchard, find something that's fun, that's unique for you.
Tomatoes are a great source. At the farmer's market here, I can buy a large box of seconds, the ones that aren't pretty, and then I peel them and make sauce. It's just a basic sauce, nothing fancy, but something that makes a nice base for other things, and then freeze it in little quart bags so it's already portioned out. And then I saw something really cool on the ground, and I don't know if it's good or not. However, I'm going to share it, even though it might be bad intel. So
we'll find out.
Yeah, right. So they didn't peel the tomatoes. They actually took the tomatoes raw, so they weren't even blanched to peel. They took them raw. Took the core, that's just the stem, top of the stem out, stuck it in a Vitamix, so it really blended well. And then they took it into, those iced tea pouring containers you can buy that has a spout on the bottom.
Yeah.
So they put all the ground up tomatoes in the Vitamix versus the blender or the Cuisinart. It makes a difference because it's really macerated. And good word there. And then stuck it in the refrigerator. And so what happened is the tomato floated and the water sank. And then they used the bottom spigot to pour the water out.
Ooh,
so now they just have a really thick paste.
So in Italy, they call that passata. It's really just, it's not a tomato sauce per se, and it's not a tomato paste. Right. So, but it is tomato flavor. Oh, I'm going to have to try that. I'm going to find that so that it was
so it's very consolidated, and obviously the water's out, but thought it'd be interesting to try. And then taking that and then freezing that. And then you have that to use for a later date. And I like to freeze it in bags and stick it on a sheet tray so that the bags are flat, and label them is important. I wonder what this treasure is. Yeah.
Yes, I've done that before. Like, I remember what it is.
So if anybody tries that, let us know.
Right. And when I do try this, I am going to try it. I'm going to try to video it, and let's see what happens.
Ooh, there we go.
Ooh, that might be an interesting feat for Denise. Okay, so next thing I know you're really into. I know you like this. You're going to like this. This, I'm talking about forest bathing to the nth degree, because we're going to do it in fall colors. Not just walking outside, but we're going to do it with that extra oomph of the fall. The crisp air, except by you. When you're in Maine, the crisp air, the fresh air, and the colors, the vibrant colors they're invigorating to the senses. But at the same time, while we're out there in doing our forest bathing, we're actually reducing our stress and lowering our blood pressure. Hello, we need to do that in this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're also boosting our immune system. This what I find when we do go out and we really enjoy forest bathing. I keep using that word. There's like a real word for it, and I can't think of what it is. It's like Shinrin something or another. Shinrin yoku is the practice of immersing yourself in nature, basically, to improve mental, physical well-being. I can't believe I remember that word. But good for me. we're into big words today.
Yes.
And I think that's really, that to me, that is the most important piece, is really to be out there to energize yourself. Again, the colors are invigorating because they're so beautiful. And the crisp air, maybe not so crisp air, but just the fresh air. Key to doing this, even when you're with someone, is just to enjoy it quietly. Sure, you can have a little bit of a chit chat, but take the time to actually experience it. Let it kind of flow through you. I'm getting a little woo-woo, sorry. But I think that's an important piece. Yes, we can go out for a walk in nature, but if we're just blah, 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 blah the whole time, we're really missing the point and really missing that energizing piece.
And there is a different energy depending on the season. And in the fall, when the air is crisp, it smells different because you have the leaves that have fallen. You have that different smell, maybe less pine and less grass and more leaves and more fall, and it makes a difference. And one thing that I noticed, because I was in Maine for August, and being in Maine for me is that we're living in the Airstream while we're building, so our living room is the yard, and the yard is full of trees because it's just a small area that's been cleared. And so I am outside all day long, every day. And so when I come back to California, I noticed in the past few days, like, I'm feeling claustrophobic, and it's only because I'm indoors. I'm like, wow, what a difference that makes for me and my brain and my body to spend so much time outside in our living room, which, we're sitting around the fire at night and we're sitting outside and I'm reading my book, and I'm listening to the birds, and right now there's less birds, more crickets, because this is the seasons change, but I'm outside, and holy cow, what a difference.
Yeah.
So you're right. And people do need to spend and just be with it.
Yeah, just be. So this third one I think is kind of fun. So September 16 and 17 is Harvest Moon. Okay. And I think it's really important to, one, know that that's happening, because, guess what? Once a month we have a full moon, but several times a year there are unique properties to the moon, to the full moon. And so September 16 and 17 is the harvest moon. So here's something fun. Why not go outside so you can see this beautiful harvest moon, howl at the moon, if you will, and do a meditation or a yoga practice. I know you have a standard yoga practice, and I think you do it in the morning. Yes.
I do.
Why not just bring it just for, one of these 2 days, just do something a little different.
And that's a great idea.
Just a short practice, maybe just a few poses, but a few poses under this harvest moon, and see how that will change the way you feel, the way you think. I mean, I'm getting tingly just thinking about it. Like, how amazing would that be to actually think about it ahead of time and plan to be outside under this harvest moon, this beautiful harvest moon.
What a great idea.
Move gently, breathe deeply. Okay, that's what I got for you today.
Perfect. I did great suggestions, Denise. Thank you so much. So we're going apple picking, and we're going to support our community, and they might have donuts. That happens quite often. And then we can call donuts real food. And then forest bathing and harvest moon experiencing. Thank you, Denise.
Yes. You're welcome. Thank you, Jeanne.
Happy fall.
Happy fall.
Hello, everyone. This is Jeanne Gallagher, Discover Rising Tides, and I want to just take a moment to talk about my friend, Denise Stegall. I am honored to call her as a friend, and I'm so grateful that she gives us her insight during our shows, each show, and talks about healthy living, eating real food. You hear Denise say, eat real food a lot. Well, she means it, and she knows what she's talking about. She is an amazing healthy living coach, curator at Living Healthy List. And if you ever have any questions about what is real food, why does it matter, how does that apply to me, how do I change, what do I need to do, how do I even create a healthy living shopping list, make sure that you call her. She is your healthy living coach, and you can find her at healthylivinglist.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jeanne Gallagher, and this is Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. I'm welcome to have you here, and I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Catryn Becker. Hey, Catryn, how are you?
Hi, it's so great to be here.
I'm glad to have you. And so Catryn is a people optimization specialist, and we're going to find out what that is. And before we dive in, give us a little bit of your bio, and then we'll start seeing where this takes us.
Well, absolutely. So we can start with the title, because if we kind of roll that backwards, it kind of makes sense. So people optimization specialist is a name I made up because I wasn't finding a suitable existing name that I felt represent what I am and who I do with my company called Optimize We. And it makes sense if you realize that my background was in engineering. So it's all about optimization. It's all about figuring out how things work, how to make them better, kind of what is the understanding behind it. It's very logical based rather than being so analytical based. At least that's my experience as being an engineer. But I went into engineering because I wanted to make the world a better place. I always felt that from a very young age, that there were things that just didn't make sense to me. Like, why do we do things this way? I don't understand. It seems like there's a better way. So I went into engineering to do that. And it's like, well, if I want to make the world a better place, I could start with the world that we live in. That seems like a pretty good start. So I did that for 20 years. And as I got further and further up the corporate ladder, which is kind of how we're all designed to operate, is right. You want to get that next promotion, the next promotion. I was dealing less and less with the actual activities that drew me into engineering in the first place. I felt further and further away from what mattered to me. And that's what kind of led me on a journey of self-discovery in a lot of ways, of really looking back and thinking, like, I never even contemplated not going to college. Like, it was just what you do next. So I took some time to really kind of evaluate why we do the things that we do. And I started with myself and found there's actually a lot out there that can help us be better, to do what we say we're going to do, to not procrastinate, to get more in touch with ourselves, and to really get more in alignment with who we are. And I find that I can make the world a better place instead of going so far out and literally talking about the world, focusing more on our inner world.
Oh, I really like that a lot. It seems to be a common theme of the people that I've been talking to, is that they've made a transition from analytical professional career to really more people directed, and making and what you might want to say that it's a softer career versus a more linear black and white career. But what I've seen is the common piece is that it's like a puzzle that you're putting together, and you're just doing it in a different environment. But a lot of the skills that you had developed over that 20-year period are way more applicable to what you're doing now than you might have imagined. Would that be right?
Oh, absolutely. And I love the analogy of the puzzle, because I'm sure there's people out there that don't do it this way, but I think the most common way for people to do puzzles is we find the edges first. And once we find those edges, then we start going inside. And so if I take that and overlay it with my experience in my life, that's kind of the analytical piece, was kind of finding, okay, where is this piece? You've got this structure to play on, and then you kind of have to dive into the unknown, that scary middle part where you really don't know. And it's just testing and trying until you kind of find where places fit and things kind of come together and you get one piece and then another piece, and then it really starts to understand what it is that you're doing. And I feel like that's a really good analogy for what my career has been to this point.
Mm. And so what are your focuses, or how has that changed? How long have you been doing this? When did you make the transition? And then what are you focusing on? And has your focus of helping people and making this world a better place evolved and changed over time?
Of course, it's evolved and changed over time. I'm a huge proponent of the amount of change that we are willing to embrace is going to be the same degree of our success, because it's all about change and it's all about embracing it and welcoming it rather than fighting against it. So for me, it started in about 2016. I had my first child in 2012 and my second in 2014. And it came a moment of just like, what am I doing? You know, I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. I was working full time. My husband was working full time. And it was just this moment of utter stress and burnout all the time. I didn't like who I was becoming. I didn't like
Mm.
that I was yelling, it felt like all the time. You know, just felt like nothing was going into plan, at least the plan in my head, you know, very little patience. So that's when I started to really kind of dive into more of the self-help, more alternative, just really opening my mind into other things that were possible. And so thank goodness I had been doing that, because when COVID happened, you know, COVID was such a, you know, pivotal moment for the world. I mean, we can
Mhm.
all think of exactly, you know, how that affected us. And even though as we're recording this in 2024, it seems like yesterday, not just 4 years ago
Isn't
in
it?
so many
It's
aspects.
outrageous that it was that long ago.
Right, time is so weird. You know, it's such a
It
meta
is.
thing. That's a whole separate topic. But COVID was really that kind of pivotal moment of, what am I doing? It could all end tomorrow. Is this really how I want to be spending my time? And
Mhm.
that's when I started to really think like, okay, I want to be doing things differently. I want to explore different options for business. And so I spent that 2020 really seeking other things. I mean, thank goodness everything went online. It was so easy to
Mhm.
learn about different methodologies and modalities and techniques and all sorts of different things. And I was using it for myself. And then like, oh my gosh, this is helping me so much. I bet I could help other people too. So I really took a very concerted effort in becoming a certified life coach. Um, and that's what I started with. And that was in 2021 when I left my full-time job and decided to go out and spread my little entrepreneurial wings, and figure it out.
That's
And
not for the faint of heart.
yeah, bless us all. It is not. It is not. And you know, I love the analogy of, you know, the butterfly and the, you know, going from the caterpillar to the cocoon to the butterfly. And we think about that in such a like fast-paced time. But when you've actually seen a butterfly come out of the cocoon, it doesn't immediately fly. Like
Mhm.
it still has to unfurl its wings, you know, it still has to get blood pumping to them. I think they've got blood. Butterflies have
Yeah, or something.
their version of blood, whatever that is. I'm sure there's some etymologist somewhere being like, oh my gosh. But neither here nor there. So I feel like those first couple of years was that time of, you know, really kind of figuring it out, because I had never been an entrepreneur before. You know,
Mhm.
I have a master's degree, I have an MBA, but theory is one thing. Actually
Mhm.
doing it and putting into practice is completely another. So there was a lot of stumbling. There was a lot of trying things and being like, "Ugh, this isn't quite right," and then trying something new. But I think the real power is not stopping,
Mhm.
is not ever thinking a failure has anything to do with me. It's
Mm.
just something that happened. It's an event. It's not an emotion. And
That's
so
that. I
often,
like how you said that, because when you are in business for yourself, you are your business. And
mhm,
it's very common to take that failure. This didn't go well. Well, it is my fault.
yeah, yeah,
Versus taking the positives thought of it. This didn't go well. What do I learn from this? And what changes should I make in order to make it go better.
And that's a huge part of mindset in what I do and how I work with other people. So, I've tried different partnerships. I've tried different, individual coaching programs and group coaching programs, and just figuring out what I liked best. And I'm really excited about the place that I'm in right now. And that is taking all of this knowledge that I've gathered for myself and working with partners and applying it to retreats. Especially it seems like people want to be back together. Doing individual coaching or group coaching on Zooms isn't quite cutting it for people anymore. So I'm really thrilled to be offering these retreats. And I love that I get the opportunity, because I've met so many people through networking over the last 4 years that I know some amazing coaches and healers. And so I'm reaching out to them. It's like, hey, do you want to host a retreat together? And so it's partnering with them to host a retreat where we're each getting to bring all of the things that make us wonderful and unique and pour into these group of people. And then I get to go do it with someone else and learn from them. And it's been really, really fulfilling. And it's really seeming to answer a need that people are responding to very positively. That people, at least that I've been coming in contact with, haven't necessarily been wanting to make that healing transformation part of a little part of their weekly routine or even monthly routine, but to go and really dedicate, 2 days, a weekend where they can really go deep, take care of themselves, and truly have self-care and a transformational experience.
I definitely want to, we're going to talk a little bit more about the retreat and what that really looks like. But before we do that, I want to really dive into, I've noticed that, and I'm sure you've noticed this more than me, I would assume, that COVID created everybody's a life coach.
Yeah.
Right? So and the cream floats to the top. What have you noticed, right? What have you noticed about that? Or what tools have you learned through that process that has allowed you to evolve your practice, but also continually have a practice and really proven that you are in the right space for you to help others?
Well, that's why I changed the name to people optimization specialist from life coach, because it was starting to be overused. And there were many people out there teaching life coaching programs, but no one had the experience to do it. So it was just, okay, you've got this certification. Now, you're released into the wild, as it were. And, until you can do it, you don't necessarily have the experience to know how to pivot and change. And I think that's where my background in business really helped, from being in a consulting space and an engineering space for as long as I was, really understanding people and that pivot, I think, really makes a difference as well, because I had that well to draw from rather than blank slate where you're just starting out. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all have to start somewhere.
Nothing wrong at all. And I think that I noticed the conversations have been different over the last year or so, but prior to that, fresh out of COVID, it seemed as though, I've lost my job and I can't find a new job, so now I'm going to be a life coach. There's nothing wrong with that process. But it seemed like the system was just flooded with people, and how difficult it is to find your space. If you are operating or starting a new endeavor, who cares what it is, life coaching or whatever it is, the ability to launch yourself into a new space with self-confidence and being brand new, but also the stick-to-itiveness and the ability to reach the right people is challenging.
It's very challenging because someone just hears life coach and they think of, the 5 people that maybe fit your example, where
Mhm.
they just kind of fell into it because they had to. And it's like, I don't even want to talk to Catryn because I know what life coaching is and I don't want that.
Right.
So it was a big part of branding and making
Mhm.
sure that people understood what I do and how I do it. So I worked really intentionally on my brand and being known as uplifting, inspirational, and honest. And really
Mm.
having those kind of core things throughout anything that I was posting, what I was doing, to really show up as myself. But I had to do the work in order to be able to show up as myself, because it's not always easy. We have to be honest about that, because so much of that toxic positivity that people were talking about, and sometimes I'll come across clients where they're like, oh, I had this negative thought and I know I'm not supposed to have that. And I'm like, whoa, 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 stop right there. Who said you're not supposed to have a thought? Like, it's not about supposed to or not supposed to. You can think, is this thought helping me or is it not helping me? That
Mm.
can be the judgment. It's not even about being good or bad, because something could be true and not be
Mhm.
helpful. Like a true
Mhm.
thought could be, there's a million other life coaches out there. That is true. Is that going to help me moving forward and doing what I want to do? Absolutely not. So, just reframing those kind of thoughts is been really important, I think, as part of going through this process. So the branding piece of it, and then the really intentional networking. And my sort of philosophy has always been to give. You receive through giving. It feels good to give. And so I came from that perspective. And what started happening is people started giving back. It wasn't ever my intention. It was just, how can I help these other people that I'm working with? And through helping them, and not in necessarily even in a coaching container, just in meeting people and being like, oh my gosh, do you know so and so? Let me introduce you. That started to come back, with people coming back and saying, hey, I've got someone I'd like to introduce you to too.
Mhm.
And so I built a really solid network, foundationally around me, to help have that sort of, consistent flow of opportunity.
Showing up as your true self really, really proves that too.
Yes. Because people can feel it. People can
Oh, it's
feel
obvious.
when we're
Yeah.
not true. I mean, it's such an interesting thing. And we talk all the time about how everything is energy and we're energy. Um, and even if people don't quite understand it or believe it or are skeptical of it, we've all had that experience where we've talked to another person and just been like, ugh,
Mm.
something's not quite right. Can't put my finger on it. Don't know what it is, but like, I don't want to be around that person. And of course, the converse is true, where we meet someone, we're like, oh my God, they were amazing. Like, I just want to
Mhm.
like be in their energy and in their space. So for me, that's when our mental, our emotional, our physical, and our spiritual is as close to alignment, is when those things really start to sing in harmony.
Mm, I love that. So, what's your typical client, or when people are reaching out to you, what are they reaching out for? And
Uh,
then we'll get into the retreat part because I really want to talk about
yes.
that.
I primarily serve women, coming from
Mhm.
engineering in a really male dominated field. It's just more on my heart and spirit to serve women, because I can
Mhm.
see how the way the world is set up isn't necessarily for us.
Mhm.
I think there's so many times where, as women, we're experiencing something and we just adapt to the situation. And then I think, a man designed this. Like a bra, or like, restrooms at public events only having like 3 stalls in the women's restroom. A woman didn't design that, a man did. Right. So there's so many examples all over our world of where we have adapted to fit in rather than
Mhm.
it just being allowed to be. So
Mhm.
that's who I really feel called to serve. And one of the things that I really shine at is being able to convert regret into wisdom.
Mm.
We walk around with so much regret of things that we did or didn't do, things that we said or didn't say. And my personal belief is that those regrets are are formed in times when
Mm.
we're not in alignment with ourselves, when we're
Mm.
listening to someone else's voice in our head. telling us we should. We're so sick of shoulding ourselves. We should all over ourselves. So there's that moment where something happens and you can convert it from regret back into wisdom, which is where it would have gone if you had been in yourself. Because it's not about avoiding hard things. We can't avoid the hard things. We have to go through them because that's how we grow and evolve and expand. It's through those moments, but it's making sure that we're not letting those hard things weigh us down and hold us back. And it's even the concept of, there's a word I made up, called, you see, I kind of do that, right? If I'm like, this doesn't fit for me, I'm going to
let's just make it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Like what
Exactly.
can I create that will fit for me? And that's a word, pregret. So it's when you had regrets in the past for something. So you now have this fear of recreating that regret. So it keeps us stuck from taking that next step in order to avoid the regret. And then you're avoiding the wisdom too.
I love that, because that regret can shape us.
Absolutely.
And it can shape and it can lead our actions afterwards. So that reframing really can alleviate heading down a path that's not going to serve.
Absolutely. Because otherwise we get stuck in these kind of loops where we'll see these same situations come up for us again. And it's like, how can we, spin ourselves out of that that pattern, that loop, that cycle that we're caught in.
I can see how this is applicable, because as I'm getting to, well, I keep saying I'm getting to launch. I should just launch the damn thing. Launch a new program directed for women in finances. There's probably some pieces that are preventing that move forward in a couple of different areas, because what if this fails? What if this doesn't look good? Am I doing this the right way?
Yeah.
So through all of these second guesses, it's creating non-action.
Right.
Yeah, I learned something today. Thank you very much.
Sure.
That hit me right in the face.
But that's the importance of having these kind of spaces and these kind of conversations, because it's giving us that opportunity to see something from a different angle. And that's super powerful in so many ways.
So so your focus is women, and professional women, women from a specific background or area, or women that are looking for guidance within a certain background or area?
Well, that's why I talk about regret, because I've had that where I've been with other business coaches and it's like, well, what are the, commonalities between all of my clients? And I've tried to make it as, the kind of typical demographics, like, okay, are they within this age? Are they professional? Are they stay at home? Are they moms? Are they not moms? And there was no pattern to it if I looked solely through the lens of demographics. And I'm like, I don't know how I have these different people, because we're talking about completely different things that are so unique and special and specific to that person. And so that's when we kind of zoomed out a little bit, and it was like, oh, they are all drowning in past regrets. This is the commonality that they all serve. So whatever is their special, combination of events that created the regret, that's completely irrelevant. It's being mired down in that regret, where they're just like, oh, every try to step forward is such a struggle, and it doesn't have to be.
And why the retreat format, and how is that working for you, and what led you to that? I know we touched on it a little bit, but I think I want to get into it further.
It's something that's always been on my heart to do. It's been on my heart for a couple of years now to do a retreat. I don't know about you, but for me, the shower is always like where I get great ideas, to the point where I kept like a dry erase board in the shower, like in like the dry section of it.
In the dry section? What a great idea.
So I could jot down notes, because before I was trying to like use the steamy section to like write down notes. And then I'd like dry off and try to get out and see it before the steam.
Or re-steam it so you can read it.
Yeah, exactly. that is not the most efficient way to do it. But putting in a dry erase board is really, really helpful. And I actually have moved now that you can buy like paper that can be used underwater. And like it's like an oil-based pen or something. So that you can, so that's what I use now. But
It's a great idea.
thank you. So it was a shower idea. And so it was one of those things, it's been on my vision board, it's been on my heart. And I was like, well, what is preventing me from doing this? And it was this idea that it had to be a certain way. And that's what I help my clients with is like, well, does it have to be this way? Like, let's step back and use our imagination and see what are other ways that it could work. And that's when I really came up to the idea of making these sort of temporary partnerships, right? They're a partnership for a specific event, not a forever partnership. It's not like when I'm working with Pascal that we're going to do every single retreat together. We'll do other ones for sure, but it's not every single one. Or when I'm working with Brenda or when I'm working with Marisol. So it's all of these incredible people that I've met that have amazing gifts to offer that are complementary to what I offer. And putting together a retreat, it's not an easy undertaking. Like there's a lot of logistics
not at all.
come with it. And it's a lot mentally to be like, can I actually do this? Can I offer this to these people? And do I have to offer everything? So it was really just about leveraging partnerships, which was, something I had already been building and developing a really good, acumen with the networking. And so now I'm just taking it and being like, hey, would you want to do this? And, this is what you'll bring. This is what I'll bring. And this is what we can bring to the people. And, hey, we can make a little bit of profit each on it. And, we all win.
That's fantastic. And so are they in person or virtual?
They're in person. They're in person.
I love
think
that.
I'm
tired of everything virtual.
Same. I mean, here we are virtual and I
love it.
So darn grateful for it. But I just don't want
I'm really good with virtual.
I just don't want everything to be virtual.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny because, as everybody has processed this and in post COVID and how much more efficient it is when I meet with clients one-on-one, sitting here and we share screens, it's really convenient. But then every once in a while, when I get an in-person meeting, I feel like I'm going to just talk to them so much because I want to be face-to-face with somebody.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, sorry. Glad to be here.
Well, and I also love it because for me and the way my mind works is I am, even though an engineering background and so much kind of structure and strategy, my mind does not work linearly. Like I am A, G, B, Z, S, A, like I'm all over the place. I don't follow the alphabet. And so it really leans into that ability to kind of be all over the place in a really positive and productive way with, okay, I want to create this. And I loved creating this, but now I don't want to create this anymore. Awesome. I'll just go do it differently with someone else and be inspired by what they're inspired from. And it just becomes this incredible synergy that gets to go back and forth and create something beautiful. And then I get to go do it again. And it's different and exciting and it keeps that energy. I mean, we're our own energy generators, right? So it really helps me to be able to keep that going and to not feel stale. It's fresh is the perfect adjective for it.
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed when I've done financial education classes online to a group versus in person. So online to a group, it's great. It's convenient for everybody. Some cameras are on, some cameras are off. There's not a ton of interaction.
Yeah.
And the presentation is quite often the same. But in person, the slide deck can be the same, but the conversation is different every single time. because the energy is different, and one person's energy in the room will affect somebody else's more so in person. And it's so easy to be distracted when you're on Zoom or whatever virtual platform you're using, because there's stuff going on in the background, there's some screens that are open behind it, it's easy to get distracted. But when you're in person, you are present.
You're the most fully present.
Yes.
That you will be. And it is incredible because it's not just how I'm going to affect them, it's how they affect me, it's how they affect each other. It's an incredible exchange of energy that happens without a retreat, within a retreat, that just can't be recreated in a Zoom setting in the same way.
Yeah, the conversation can be totally different, but more needed in person.
Yes.
Whether you could take the same people and the same example of exactly what happened, and the conversation will turn in a totally different way that you wouldn't have imagined that it was needed if you were in person.
100%. And the other thing that I love about doing the retreats, well, there's so many things I love about your retreat. I mean, as I said that, like 5 different things popped into my head, but the Zoom is only 2-dimensional. That's all it can ever be. When I do a retreat in person, I am bringing in sight. I am bringing in smell. I am bringing in touch. I am bringing in hearing, and I am bringing in taste. I am really touching on all of the 5 senses. And I'm making sure it touches on all 4 aspects of us: our physical form, our mental form, our spiritual form, and our emotional form. So I'm really making sure that it's hitting all of these different points, because everyone needs a different combination of that at a different level. So it kind of gives this like lovely, like 360, 3D, almost 4D feeling that can't be replicated here. And the second point that I want to make, and this is the part that's hardest for me, is when I look at the schedule, my inclination is to fill every single moment of
every moment.
Like, let's maximize our time together. I want to get it all in, but that's not what's going to be best for them. And so it's very intentional to leave in free space, because if we think about the average person in an average day, we never leave free space for ourselves. Whether it's picking up your phone, scrolling through social media, even if it's just playing a game on your phone, because we all need that kind of, separation download piece. You don't necessarily have that at the retreat. I bring, I have a book that I've published, and so that's part of the gift bag. It's for people. So there's at least something there that they can read, something that's a little bit different, but it's a different sort of downtime than being on your phone, which isn't always the best for us, as we know.
Not at all, because then we just check out and then we're not anywhere.
Yeah, we're not.
So what's the format? You said it's a couple of days.
It's a couple of days. The format, there's like an overall arching format to it, but then the components are going to change because of what the other person is offering. And so when I'm meeting with these other people and we're kind of starting to hash out and plan it, my first question to them is, who are you called to serve? Like, who is present on your heart to serve right now? Like, and how do you want to serve them? So we start from that point, and then we kind of build out backwards of to how we what are some of the offerings. But we start very clearly with who is that person that needs this right now. Because the other thing with these retreats is, first of all, you can't have, like, there's not great spaces and to have, 20, 30, 50 people. Like, it needs to be intimate for space, just logistically wise, makes it a lot easier. And then also for how much we can pour into the other people. We can't have that very intimate one-on-one time with 20 people,
30 people.
Yeah. So keeping it to 10 people. And so we're very clear of, who is this woman? What is it that she's needing right now? How would we serve her to get her to her final goal? And then we build out what's the actual piece and component of the program. But we want to make sure that there's some physicality to it. So whether there's hiking, because going out in nature is so important and it's something that most of us don't do often enough. So having a retreat in a beautiful space is one of the tenets of the retreat. It needs to be able to put us outdoors, in nature, kind of away from the hustle bustle, whether it's doing yoga outside or swimming if we're at a beach, someplace to hike, but there needs to be a nature component to it. And the food is really important because we're nourishing our minds and our spirits. I want to make sure we're nourishing our bodies. So we talk about what are the foods we're eating. I mean, because as women, let's be honest, most of us have really messed up relationships with diets and food and our bodies, and it's all intertwined and enmeshed, and it's kind of a mess. So, I try to peel back some of those layers and bring in professional chefs that can cook amazing food that's not fried, that's not covered in butter, like that's not doused in sugar, that we can really make some amazing food really, really well and really, really cleanly, so that we're kind of cleaning our body that way, as well, from some of the junk. Not, I mean, there's places and times for that. And it's not that we all have to be vegan or have to eat in any particular way, but it's just opening them up to some other ways, to do it. So those are kind of like the main like pillars is beautiful place in nature and beautiful food. And then the other components are quite interchangeable.
And I love how that, because that really, like you said, touches on all the senses as well. And incorporating the outdoors into a learning environment like this is so incredibly important. It's funny because I know that when I go to education work conventions, that I only do it once a year, and I come out at the end of, I was actually talking to another advisor about this a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I am going to disengage sometimes more than I have before because, and I'm like, oh my God, me too. Because I've come out of this over the last few years totally drained.
Yeah.
Or I find myself at the beach because it actually happens to be in Southern Florida. So I find myself sitting at the beach by myself, just sitting outdoors because I can't absorb any more information.
Yep.
I'm at overload and I'm overstimulated. And it comes to a point where the things that I'm learning I'm not learning them. I'm just sitting there.
Right.
Because I haven't had time to integrate what's been told to me. And if you're hiking and you're doing these other activities as a group too, doesn't it create conversation around the topic that was discussed?
Oh, absolutely. It creates these little,
and that there's more
moments.
learning that happens there than the presentation of the topic, I would assume.
Absolutely.
That assimilation.
Like, it's the best because it requires the least from me.
Yeah.
Like, it's already here. Nature's already outside our front door, and it's just waiting for us to explore it. And just taking, and sometimes I even tell them, like, don't feel like you have to talk to people. Like, sometimes they'll be like, let's just make the next 30 minutes just in our own head, which can be really scary for some people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's
have you been in my head? How do you know this?
But it can be really, really intimidating. So just like there's the introverts that are scared to maybe, like, how am I going to talk to someone? I don't do small talk. The extroverts need that time where it's like, it's okay to not talk. It's okay to listen to what's going on in your head. It's okay to just be noticing the birds in the trees, the wind through the leaves, the rustle of the, ground cover. Like, that's okay to just be in that space. And it lets so much sink in so easily with so much grace.
I love that.
It's a tool,
fantastic.
And it's really, really helpful.
I love the fact that you're integrating this. I think it's so important. And that you're not, like you said, squishing everything, every single moment of the day, because those other moments are so needed. And where do you usually have retreats?
It depends. So it's wherever the people are that I'm partnering with. So I've got one coming out in a few weeks that will be in Galveston, Texas, which is just south of Houston. Then another one will be later in November that is up in Canada outside of Toronto. And then there will be one in 2025 in February in Florida. So those are the three that are scheduled for right now. And as I continue to network and partner with other people, and my ideal scenario would to do one a month and do it someplace different and get to connect with different people.
That's fantastic. So Catryn, where do people find you?
They can go to the website, which is optimizewe.com. And the Optimized We, people ask me about that name and where does it come from? And I think it's so easy for us to only think about the work that we're doing internally, but it's really this paradox or duality of that, we have to go in to do the work, but that's how we help connect to other people. So when we can optimize me, we can optimize we.
Oh, fantastic. Such a pleasure talking with you.
You as well. I really enjoyed this.
And I encourage people to check out your website. And if some of this has just sparked a little, take a moment and reach out to Catryn, and I'm sure you'll find the resources that you need. So thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show was sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, it's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discover Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me, and if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.